Member Emerald, and myself. Also here with us today is the committee staff, including Carrie Gleason from the Office of the City Attorney. Yes, your timing is perfect. Jeff Kowar from the Office of the Independent Budget Analyst, Francisco Estrada from the Mayor's Office, and Nika Bukalova, Committee Consultant. Thank you all for being here. We're going to begin with non-agenda public comment. We have one speaker, Patrick Edwards, and I assume bid council is slightly different from the other item on the agenda, correct?
That is correct, and that's why I'm here. I had planned on my schedule to be here to represent the bid council as president and support the renewal of the contract for the bid council. Good morning. And I noticed that it's been pulled from the agenda, so I have to just mention on non-agenda comments, since I'm here, that we have had a long relationship with the city in support of the bids, historic and the neighborhoods of your districts, and that we hope to continue going forward, that the process of renewal of the contract will be expedited under a normal fashion. So that's why I'm here this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to comments specific to regulatory streamlining, open government, and economic development suggestions. We have none this morning. Moving on to committee comment. Is there any committee comment?
Question, Slider. Just on our speaker on item, are we not hearing item 3 then? Is that what I understood?
What he's referring to is the contract specific to the bid council, not the bids.
Okay.
So we do have the bids coming forward. There's another item that we will be hearing at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the city attorney, the IBA, or mayoral staff? Seeing none, let the record reflect that Councilmember Alvarez is here. Our first order of business is approval of the minutes from our special meeting on March 14th, 2013. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilmember Alvarez, second by Vice Chair Faulkner. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We do not have a consent agenda this morning, so moving on to our first agenda. Item 1 is an informational presentation of open government web pages by the Director of Open Government. And welcome, Ms. Donna Fry,
Thank
the
you.
Director of Open Government.
I know. Do you like that?
Always ex officio in some way, so thanks for being here.
Can I
Thank
extend
you.
a welcome to our former colleague as well, Ms. Leitner, and to say it's always great to see you, Ms. Fry.
Thank you.
It's just always great to see you.
And it's
Welcome.
good to see all of you. And I'm also glad to be in this capacity. I actually get to go home at night. It's kind of wonderful. So what I'm here today to show you and also to get some input on is the Open Government web pages that we launched last week during Sunshine Week. The mayor has made it one of his top priorities to support open government, and one of the first things he did was to appoint me as the Director of Open Government. So I'm very happy about that. And last week, the mayor launched, the mayor launched the city's first ever open government web pages. So I wanted to just go over them briefly with you. Start with the home page, which is essentially just basic information about how you can contact the mayor and some of his staff, and additionally to talk about his Saturday monthly office hours, which I think is probably the first time I've ever seen anything like that. Our mayor goes down to the lobby, and one Saturday a month he meets with members of the public. So it's been really a lot of fun to do that, and very interesting. And I also wanted to bring your attention to what else is on the home page, which a lot of people for some reason seem to miss, and it's because they're relatively small little buttons. But if you look down at the bottom bar here, it'll say make online payments, where people can make automatic payments. You can also sign up for email updates, and there's also a variety of online city services ranging anywhere from alarm permits to graffiti removal requests, official city documents, library materials, bids and contracts. So there's a lot of information on that homepage. The one I think that you'll probably be the most interested in is the required document postings page. And essentially, when we started putting this website together, what we wanted to do is make sure that any actions that had been taken by the public through any kind of ballot measures, in addition to any actions that had been taken by the City Council to make sure that certain information was posted, was done in a timely manner. So we sort of think of this as the floor. This is the basic minimum standards that the public and the council members have asked for, and we have done our best to comply. And I'll just go over a few of them. The first one was Proposition B, which was passed last June. And what that does, it requires the city to post the amount paid to each retiree, and we have to do that every calendar year. So I'll just click on that, and the public can get all the information with the job classifications, the years of service, and the 2012 amount of the pension payouts. We also have something that I think a lot of people don't know, that the city attorney on a weekly basis posts what he calls a litigation log. And so every week the city attorney posts that, and the public can see what lawsuits have been filed against or by the city of San Diego. There was a measure that the City Council passed, I believe it was November of last year. It was called the Sunshine Act. And the Sunshine Act required a lot of things to be posted. One of those was the amount for the prior year for the city employee compensation. So if you go to that, there's information going back to 2009. The 2012 information is not yet available, otherwise that would have been posted. Also, in 2012, the voters passed a ballot measure, Proposition A, and that required that all city contracts that exceeded $25,000 be posted online, and in addition, if there was a sole source contract, that the justification would be posted as to why it was a sole source contract. Additionally, the number of bidders were required to be posted. So let me just take you to that briefly. And you can see there's the contract number. If you click on that link, it takes you right to the contract. It tells you the date, the amount, the contractor, the number of bidders, and then also a contact person so that you can find out more information if you want. Let me see. If you go to the sole source, we'll find one here. This is Qualcomm Stadium Emergency Concrete Repairs. When you click on the link for the contract, what you will see is the memorandum, which is essentially the justification as to why this is a sole source contract. So that's where you'll find that information. In addition, when you all passed the Sunshine Act, you also asked that contracts that were not just construction contracts, but goods and services and consultants also be posted online, and you asked that that be done by July if we had the money. Well, I just want to show you, we've already started doing it, and it's under the architectural and engineering and other consultant contracts, and the same type of information is there as well. So we're trying to stay not only timely, but a little bit ahead of schedule. In addition, the Sunshine Act also wanted the city to post the memorandum of understanding with all of our labor organizations, and that is done. And then also, I had a special request to list the campaign and lobbyist disclosure information, so that is also on that page. The next little button takes you to some information that many people have requested that we put up here, because sometimes it's very difficult to find, specifically related to CEQA notices and documents and the CEQA notices of rights to appeal the environmental determinations. I know the chair is very interested in that, and so that was one of the things we wanted to get up there. The other little button takes you to some basic information, how to participate in government, but this one is also sort of fun, the public participation button. This assists the public in ways they can comment online. So if you can't attend a city council meeting, you can just click on that link. It has some information about how they can speak to the city council, contact a community planning group, or file a Public Records Act request. And then the last little button is some outside resources, two of the documents that the public is often looking for, the California Public Records Act as well as the Brown Act. And I do want to say that we have tried to put this together in an orderly fashion so that it's easy for people to use that might not be able to find things on the website, but it took hundreds of city employees, just so you know, to really work hard on this, and they did an amazing job. And in addition, some of the other things we've been working on besides this is we've been working with a number of community members who are very, very interested in open government. And I've learned a great deal. I'm just going to name a few of them, and I also know that Councilmember Kersey on Monday has been working with the Code for America, and I believe it was Ari and Joe LaCava and I think Judd Sundwall. They were talking about how to make it easier for our CIP projects. We've also been working with Eric Busboom with the San Diego Regional Data Library, Jerry Hall, who is the founder of Data Juncture with eCitizens, and this, I think, is a pretty exciting project. He received a grant from the Knight Foundation, and we are now working with him and the IT department, and what he's doing is putting together a citizens e-alert. So it's sort of like a Google where you can type in words of things that you're interested in, and the information will be pushed out to the citizens rather than having to hunt for it. We've also been working with Stephen Heverly at the Jamie Ortiz Communications, and of course Ari Isaac. Jeff Johnson, the Code for America, is doing all kinds of great stuff. Ben Katz, he has proposed a project that is a grant application that with the Knight Foundation, and essentially what that will do is to allow the community planning groups to post their agendas directly online by themselves, as well as their minutes and any backup materials. B.H. Kim, who is the executive director of the San Diego Foundation, they've been hosting a lot of these open government events, so we're working with them. And I think I said Joe LaCava and then Jed Sunwald. And just a special thank you to Ellen in the IT department, who worked so hard to help get this all organized. So we also have received information from the IBA's office. We had asked to get some input on things they would like to see posted, making it easier for the public to participate. So we're hoping to add some budget items so it'll be easier for the public to participate when the council is involved in the budget discussions. So the offer to anything that we can post and fit on this that will make it easier for the citizens to communicate, not just with the mayor's office, but for the city in general. We are really, really open and willing to work with all of you to make that easier. And that's my presentation.
Thanks very, very much.
All right.
Director of Open Government.
Thank you. And also the Deputy Director, Stephen Hadley, who spent a great deal of time. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. If you don't,
just stay right there. We're going to take some public comment, and
Okay.
then we'll have council member comment. Are there any comments from the mayor's office, independent budget analyst, or city attorney? No. Okay, so we will go to public comment, starting with Mr. Robert McNamara and followed by Mr. Joe LaCava.
Good morning, committee members. Robert McNamara, District 3. It's a pleasure to see Ms. Fry back with us and working, and I'd like to note that many of these items that she just went over, she was working on when she was still a council member, especially with the getting the contract information online. I remember several meetings where that came up, and now it came to fruition. Many of the other items on the website were sort of lost in the general in with the general departments, and were hard to find by anyone wishing to look them up. So it's nice to have them all in one place. mentioning the IBA, perhaps the IBA's reports could be added here. I'd like to hear how the website will be updated. I guess in your questioning you'll get to that point. Who will do it, how often, so that the most current information is always available on the website. On a negative note, as this window is opening now, another closed back on December 13th for a significant portion of the population. And I'm talking once more about Channel 24 on December 13th, 2012. Cox Communications unilaterally, apparently, decided that the so-called public access channel, Channel 24 and two others, would be now completely digitized, and people who have the older television sets, which is prior to 2005, either had to do without Channel 24 or would have to rent a digital receiver from Cox Communications at the rate of $11 per month. So a lot of us older folks who have the older TVs no longer get Channel 24, and I'm not about to fork out $11 a month for something I used to get for free. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair,
Mr. LaCava? Oh, Mr. Estrada?
if I may, and I must apologize to Mr. McNamara, because I was supposed to come back and report back to you, sir, about this, the PEG channel, the public education channels, and Cox Communications. And we did communicate with Cox, and Cox provided us with some information that they would make a receiver available at no cost for people that have the older televisions, sir. And I have that information. Unfortunately, I don't have that with me, but if I could talk to you after this meeting, I would be happy to present that information. And to put that information, we should put that information online as well, so that others can avail themselves of the service. Cox has agreed that they need to provide folks, their customers, with access to the public education channels at no cost to their customers for an extended period of time. Unfortunately, the other piece that they did say is that this is the changeover of the PEG channels is a part of the overall going to digital for all television communications, and that probably by the year 2015, 2016, all channels would now be available only through digital means, and at some point in time, everybody's going to have to adapt to the new technology. But if I could talk to you after this meeting, sir, I'd be more happy to. Thank you.
I want to thank you, Mr. Estrada, for checking that out. It was a referral from the committee, and I appreciate very much. It's good news. Mr. LaCava.
Joe LaCava, I appreciate the committee's time to speak on this issue. Of course, I am here in full support of what Donna has been doing. It's great to see the fruition of the prior actions of the City Council and the major initiatives pushed by the mayor in really opening up government and making our website more accessible. You know, it occurs to me that transparency, which is becoming a rapidly overused word, is important to some of those who are looking for accountability in city government. But it's also important just for average citizens and business people that just want to understand and how to interact with the city and be able to navigate the website. As much information as is in there, as you heard, is often buried and difficult for first-timers to figure out. So that's really appreciative. The reason I also wanted to speak is that, as Donna mentioned, Councilmember Kersey was showing leadership at Infrastructure Committee and opening up to a lot of new technology that will even help the city be more streamlined, more efficient, and more open. And if you were there, you heard a conversation about open data. And to me, open data is kind of the parallel to open government. If you look at what was presented today, open government means sharing all the documents the city has or the agendas and how to navigate through them. Open data is kind of parallel, but open data means you share with the public all the information the city has generated that is buried within the various departments, like CIP information, 311 requests, And instead of pre-packaging that information, you give it to them in an open data format so they can package it in the way they see. So rather than saying, here's the maps you can get from us, you instead say, here's the data. You can put the maps together the way you want to. If you want to know how street lights and street trees and sidewalks go together, you can generate your own map because the city has provided the raw data. And as I understand, there's about 20 cities across the country that have already taken leadership about this. I'd like to see City of San Diego be on the cutting edge of this effort. I think it's certainly time, and it certainly parallels the good work that Donna is doing. I'm a layperson, so I don't understand all the technology. What I did do is print out something that is pretty layperson friendly about what New York City is doing. They're very cutting edge, and how this translates and what this means. And this is good for citizens and business people and nonprofits who want to look at data in their own way, and that helps build confidence in terms of how city government works. So thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. I would like to start with one of the questions that was already asked. How often and by subject will new information be uploaded to the website?
Well, one of the things
And who does it?
As we'll talk about the required document postings, obviously we would do whatever we needed to do to make sure that we're not only timely in compliance with the laws or whatever ordinances the council passed, but also if we have additional information, we'll post those. And so it's a variety of departments. It's across the entire city. Different departments have different functions, and as the new information becomes available, we will post them. Many of the items are just links to the actual page that is updated on a regular basis as well. So, and we'll all be working on it, and of course I will be making sure that it is done in a timely manner.
And so if someone has a concern about what's on or not on there, do they contact you?
Yeah, I wish they would, because one of the things when we put this together, it was our first attempt to try and organize some information coming from somebody maybe that had not accessed the city website all that often, and tried to put it together in a way that would make it easier for them. If we haven't been successful at that, we'd sure like to know about it.
I should have started out with congratulations. I think this
Thank
is
you.
really terrific. It's something that we all have been looking for a very long time, and I know how excited you were when you thought it was done, and then it wasn't quite done.
I
and
know.
I'm glad to see it. You did make mention of Citizen e-alert.
Right.
What is the timeline for that?
Well, what that is, that's a grant application that has been awarded with the Knight Foundation with Jerry Hall. We expect that, again, it's not the city of San Diego that is doing that. It is Jerry and his organization. And we expect, he just hired one of the technical advisors, and essentially what they will be doing with the city is, as he calls it, scrubbing the data, but pulling the data out of the city website and then putting together topics and things that the public can type in. So I'm not going to give you an exact timeline because I don't know that he knows that, but I would say within 10, 11 months.
Well, we certainly would appreciate you coming back even quarterly to report on all the changes as you make them.
I'm happy to do it.
Okay,
I'm happy to come answer any questions.
Okay, Councilmember Emerald?
So you figured out a way to continue this work, eh?
I know.
Good for you.
I know.
That's terrific.
Actually,
yeah,
Bob
and she's
Filner
right.
figured out a way to do it.
Yeah, and good for all of us.
Good
It's
for the
true.
mayor.
Yeah, good for the mayor. And he's true to his promises. Open data, the presentation at Infrastructure the other day really was very interesting. And you say that you're partnering with some of these folks to bring that open data process to the city as well?
Yes, and one of the things we had met with Ari and Jeffrey and also Jed, I believe. There's so many people, and I'm trying to make sure they're in the right meetings. But one of the issues related to the item that was at Councilmember Kersey's committee was related to how mapping and real-time mapping can help. Part of the proposal, I believe, would require that the city sort of change the way they do requests for proposals and require some of that real-time information in the RFPs so that that mapping information would be available when the bids go out. There is also some talk, quite a bit of talk about the sidewalks, where the amount of money that we would spend for the sidewalk assessment, people are emailing and twittering and saying, oh, we could do it for cheaper. So we're certainly going to look into that. But I do look forward to working with Councilmember Kersey and, of course, all of you, because the idea is to make it easier to get the information, to find out what's going on in your community, stuff that's important to the public.
Yeah, and for those who weren't privy to the conversation there at Infrastructure, that looks so we're going to be hiring a bunch of college students to go out and survey the sidewalks and see which ones need repairs and which sidewalks don't exist, so that we can actually put sidewalks into neighborhoods that don't have them. So really excited about that and the possibilities, again, especially as we're going forward to into communities and in many cases providing all sorts of levels of new service. To be able to do it holistically is probably going to save us a lot more money and be efficient and all that. The Public Records Act requests, will we have some kind of a system for logging the categories of PRA requests, for example, and whether we've satisfied them?
We could get that information for you. There already is a logging system that we use in the mayor's office as far as each public records request that comes in, and it's assigned a number by the city clerk's office. So if you were interested in categories, I mean, I can give you kind of an overall view. A lot of it has to do with litigation. Some of it has to do with a lot of media requests, like what your calendars, what have you been doing, what do your emails look like. Sometimes people send in requests to have information compiled that does not actually exist, and so that becomes a little more tricky when they're searching for documents and information that the city does not have. So that's always a challenge.
Yeah, and how are we doing with actually putting public documents on a website so that the public can directly access them?
Well, I think that we can do better, and I think that's the goal. Again, this, the open government pages are just the start of ways to make it easier for the public to access information. And one of the projects that I talked about where Ben Katz applied for a grant from the Knight Foundation. That is precisely what that grant is about, so that the backup documents, the minutes, of course the agendas are required, but things that are not required under the Brown Act would actually be posted, and people could go find that backup documentation. They can't find it now. So.
And I know that's the direction that the city clerk is going as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, the city clerk does an amazing job. I mean, the information that they post, part of the goal here was try and make it easier to find it. A lot of it's there. It's just where do you go to find it?
Gotcha. And with regard to the folks who can't make it down here to public hearings, being able to communicate with us, I know that folks send us emails, they pick up the phone and call. Skype is being used more and more. Will we have a capacity, do you think, going forward that folks can leave a message basically digitally on video?
I don't know.
That could be played at council hearings, for example, upon occasion. It would be nice to have a sort of a teleconferencing element to our system of government, so that we might even be able to access more experts remotely to testify at hearings and help us make informed decisions.
And as luck would have it, one of the other applicants for the Knight Foundation Open Government Challenge happens to be the Voice of San Diego, KPBS, and I can't remember the other partner. And essentially they are looking at exactly what you just brought up to see if they can get a grant to help do that.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate everything you're doing, and welcome back.
Thanks.
You bet.
Vice Chair Faulkner.
Thank you, Ms. Leitner. Great presentation, Ms. Fry. Thank you. And I was glad to see all of the work that you've done, particularly in compliance, as you mentioned, to some of the initiatives, but also going beyond that. And I think the categories are fairly intuitive to go through the website. So very good. The only little
Can I
question.
just say that
You may.
it's not just me. Really, I mean, I helped organize it, but there was a whole lot of people that worked real hard to get all those documents posted. So I really want to make sure that people get the proper credit and don't make it look like I did this all by myself. I did not.
I like that. The question I had on the, maybe you got to this and I missed it, but on particularly planning board agendas or issues for planning boards, just wanted
Yeah,
to
let me-
see how we.
Well, that one's a little.
Because I know it's been
little
something
more difficult.
we've been interested in, particularly yourself.
Right. What we have on the community planning group agendas, the way it's set up now is you go from, and if you can see,
Yeah.
you can go from group to group. Some of
Not
them
this screen.
need more information, and as you know, the Brown Act does not require that minutes be posted nor that backup materials be posted. So part of the Knight Foundation grant application that Ben Katz, Joe LaCava, and
Right.
the city, that is part of that to help that. And so we're looking at ways to make it easier for people to actually get right to those agendas. In addition, on the, I think it was the public participation page, let me find that, we added a link to enable the public to contact a community planning group. But if you look at it, it's quite, it's quite a large document. So we're also looking at ways not to just have the information posted, but to make it a whole lot easier to directly get you to that agenda or to, to the
Yep.
minutes. And we'll also be working, because I noticed the BID councils are here, and I believe it was Councilmember Alvarez, I believe in April of last year, had, and the council supported a motion to require very similar information as far as agendas, minutes, if there's contracts, if it's a sole source contract, that they list the number of bidders. And I think that we can probably do a much better job with that as well, making sure that it gets people right to the minutes. They don't have to go to a website and try and figure out how to get that information. So I also look forward to working with the big council to make that a whole lot easier.
No, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I would just say lastly, is there anything you need from us or
Yes.
from the council at this point?
Yes, I do. Specifically, what would really help make this successful is that in your contacts with members of the public, if they are, continually asking for certain documents or information, or you have issues that come up again and again and again, we can help you put together like frequently asked questions. If you have questions that come up, 15 people are calling on the same item and you want to try and put something together, I'm happy to work with you and do that and get that posted. If there are things on your own websites that you're saying, boy, people really ought to know this. Again, this is open government for the entire city, and we want to make sure that you have the opportunity to make it the best experience for the public to participate with every single part of the city. So whatever we
Terrific.
can do, we're happy to help.
Thank you, and thanks again for the presentation. Looks really good.
Thanks.
Councilmember Kersey.
Thank you, Chair Leitner. I just want to thank Ms. Fry for your presentation today. I like what the mayor's doing on this. As was mentioned several times now, we did have a presentation about this at Infrastructure on Monday morning, and as Ms. Emerald mentioned, it was a fascinating discussion and just great to see all the options that are available to us. If anybody's interested, that's item 6 from our meeting, and you can go on the city's website, you can go back and you can watch that if you want to see. That's towards the end of the meeting.
And then we can post the documents as well. I'm not sure if they're on the website yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure how quickly they go up, but yeah, absolutely.
But those backup documents would be really helpful to have linked up with your meeting agendas and minutes.
No question about it. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. And I would strongly support it. Mr. LaCava, who's been a great advocate on this issue, talked about open data. And I think that this council should adopt an open data policy for the city. And I don't know if that would come under this committee's jurisdiction. It sounds like it might. But if that's something you want to look into in terms of how we might craft that and make that work with the other things that you're looking at. But I think that would be a really excellent way to allow members of the public to engage and use the data that we already gather and kind of manipulate it as they will and come up with some pretty cool things. So
And manipulate it well, we hope. I know, I'm always worried about that word.
exactly.
There's enough manipulation
Exactly.
going on.
And then the last comment I would have is I was just kind of watching you scroll through the thing there is I would also encourage the departments as we put information online to put as little of it in PDF format as possible, just because if people are on mobile devices, PDFs are generally not overly friendly. I mean, you know, iPads are okay, but if you're on your phone, PDFs really don't work all that well in terms of actually viewing it. So as people are sending out press releases or putting big documents, you know, PDFs are kind of a hassle. So anyway, but thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Oh, and one more, if I could, just jump in before Mr. Alvarez, I apologize.
Emerald.
But there's a little button you can push on the city's website that changes the language.
Yes, there is, and
And-
that's down at the bottom. If you look down here with the little mouse, and we can select the language, we can go to, let's go to Georgian today.
See, there you go. We have
And
so
if
many
you
languages
look at that,
spoken
you
here.
will see that it's quite beautiful.
And that's that's system-wide, so
Correct.
just so people aren't aware, we have, how many languages on here, 50 or 60 or something?
It's a good translation, and then when you go to each document, each page, you have to load it up again, just so people know.
Great. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you, and congratulations on the work so far. I know that there's more ahead. I keep on wanting to call you Councilwoman Fry.
Please don't.
No, Donna,
Thank
congratulations.
you. I appreciate it.
And so you brought up the bid council, or the bid information that we did discuss and approve at council. Do you know where that's at?
I do, and I know that, what page is that on? Okay. Hold
Okay.
on, we'll go with, well, let's try this. We'll see. We'll do this real time and see my bad typing. Okay. We'll go to business improvement districts, and this is interesting. There we go. We'll go to economic development, and if you go to that page, keep going down and scrolling down, you'll see BID governance and meeting information, and then you will see a list of the different BIDs. But let's just click on one and see what we have. So you leave the city website, which takes a few seconds. We're just picking one, and of course it's slower than. That's one of the other things we could do is make this a little speedier. But anyways, what you essentially do is leave the city's website, and it takes you to each one of the BID pages. One of the problems that I have found is that it takes a while to navigate to find out where the meeting. Here's City Heights. So let's see. Here we go. We can go to Board of Directors. Here's the meetings. And then you click on, and there should be the agendas. And
There you go.
February, let's see, I guess they don't have a meeting yet for March. But
Okay.
again, the goal to better comply with what I think the intention of your motion was, and you could certainly correct me if I'm wrong, is to actually have on the city websites direct links to the meeting minutes and agendas,
Right.
rather than, having people try and figure out each website and where to go get that information.
So that might be something to add under your meetings and the tab that had meetings, and just have a link that takes you to that section of the bid council
Right.
page, or
I
the
think
economic
that's a great
development page,
idea.
where you can just scroll down, so you don't have to recreate anything. But,
Great, and I will make that my next project.
And as far as you know, is there compliance with all of those, since you are overlooking our open government component? or-
I have looked at them, and I think that they could do a better job of making it easier for the public to find those on their home pages.
Okay.
I'll let each one of the bids. I think that's probably a good question for you to ask them. I think that since they're here,
Yeah.
they can address that. But the goal is to make it as easy as possible, and to make sure that simple Brown Act compliance occurs, such as I've looked at some agendas, and it does not tell us where the meeting is going to be held.
Right.
It does not have an address. Those are very simple issues that I think we could do a better job.
Okay, we'll ask them when they come up.
I
And
think
on-
that'd be a good idea.
And on the open source, that's really sounds really good. I think I was pretty, I'll say it, pretty critical of the information that was put out from the CIP projects that the city is preparing, and I'm assuming that that's what the open source data would allow folks to manipulate that in a better way. I really do think it's pretty poor quality, with all respect to the staff that worked on it, but it's I've seen other pages where it's more interactive. It's just easier to manipulate to get information that you want, and I would be fully supportive of that. And I think you're hearing full support, unanimous. So go forward, and if you can make that happen, that'd be great. But thank you
Right,
so
and
far.
just on that, the CIP pages, one of the things that I do want to say is, given the relatively short period of time in which these folks had to put
Right.
this together, for the council members, I think that all things considered, again, given the tools and the time, I think they did a great job in there. I know that they're working really hard to even make it better and more interactive and
Right.
easier for the public to use.
And I don't think we've given them the resources, and that's why this open source data grant could be the resources they need to make it happen. So,
Yeah, I'm sure they would not turn down any additional resources to help
Right.
them with this.
okay, thank you again.
That brings me to a question. How much would you estimate the financial investment was to get this where it is right now?
Golly,
And are you going to be presenting something during the budget hearings on additional investments and what we could get with certain dollar amounts?
it will be presented in the budget from the departments.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. I'll work with the mayor and Mr. Estrada as to how that information is going to be presented. But a lot of this information was already available. So the probably the most costly was the city construction contracts with the construction contract information, and then with the architectural and engineering and other consultant contracts. The cost primarily is for the staff hours to put it together. It's not posting it. It's not
posted.
so
You
much
just need to
that, but
link
it's
it up.
compiling it and making sure that everything's there and going through that process. But I think everybody would be pretty happy with the fact that we were able to do this, and I don't think there's been any additional budgetary costs that have come forward,
So-
probably under budget, what was estimated in the ballot measures.
Okay, so when the budget comes forward and the departments present, we need to look for an open government line item. No?
I don't
we
know. I'm not
request
doing
that?
the budget. I know, Francisco. We'll look into it and figure
I'm
out
somewhat
exactly
joking,
how
but
that's going to be.
At the same time, we need to make sure we have tried for a long time to get everything online and
I
make
know.
things as accessible as we can, and we need to properly fund that, too, to make sure it happens.
I totally agree,
Okay,
and I know the mayor will.
okay.
Thank
you
you.
very much. And I look forward to when you come back with
I will
the
try and
latest
do it every
greatest.
quarter, or if something really exciting's happening, I'll at least, send a note down.
All right.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you, ma'am. Item 2, moving on to the next item. Item 2 is the report from Development Services Department regarding the city's issuance of a Notice of Right to Appeal, so-called NORA, and environmental determination and recommending amendments to the city's land development code regarding the issuance of NORAs and the time for appeal. Welcome, Kathy Winterode, Assistant Deputy Director with the Development Services Department, Amanda Lee, Senior Planner in the Development Services Department. I'm drawing a blank right now. Shannon
Shannon Thomas, Deputy
City
City
Attorney's
Attorney.
Office. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to the presentation.
Good morning. Chair Leitner and members of the Committee on Rules and Economic Development. We're here today at the request of this committee to present proposed code language related to the city's environmental appeal process. At the January 9th, 2013 Council Committee on Rules and Economic Development, we discussed the CEQA provisions for appeal of environmental determinations to the elected decision-making body and the city's noticing requirements and expanded environmental noticing practices that went into effect in 2011. At the meeting, staff reported that the expanded noticing process seems to be working well. The committee directed staff to work with the city attorney's office to prepare draft code revisions implementing that process. In summary, the existing code requirements require that NORAs be physically posted at the Development Services Building. As of July 2011, we have expanded that notification process, including continuing the posting at the building, but also posting on the city's website and emailing the notice to interested parties who've requested such notification, the council districts, and the community planning groups. The proposed code amendments before you today requires additional notification requirements, but it's the same as the expanded notification process that's been in effect for almost 2 years now. In looking at the code language for the noticing requirements, we identified some areas that needed clarification. And those include the contents of the NORA, the length of time the NORA is required to be posted, the timing for filing an environmental appeal, and the applicability, or when a NORA is required and is not required. The proposed amendments to Land Development Code Section 1120310 clarify that the NORA procedures apply to city manager determinations that a project is exempt and to environmental determinations for projects that do not require a public hearing or that are decided at the Process 2 decision-making level. Amendments to this section also clarify details regarding the location where the notice must be posted, who the notice must be distributed to, and the timing and duration required for availability of the notice. NORAs will continue to be required to be posted at the Development Services Department building in a location easily accessible to the public, and this is on the 3rd floor in the lobby area. These notices shall also be posted on the city's website, and we saw a link to that just in the previous presentation, so I'm going to check that out, and distributed to the planning group and council offices where the project is proposed, and then, of course, to any interested person that's requested it. Currently, the type of notice is required to be posted for 15 days and is provided by electronic mail at least 15 days before the date of a Process 2 decision. You'll see in the code language that we're actually proposing to change that to 10 days to make that consistent with the appeal period. The proposed amendments to Section 1120520 clarify that an appeal of an environmental determination that is made by the Planning Commission or hearing officer must be filed with the city clerk within 10 business days of the date of decision to adopt or certify an environmental document. On February 21st, 2013, the draft ordinance was posted to the city's website and distributed via email to all community planning groups, land development stakeholder groups, and other interested persons to solicit public input in accordance with the typical land development code amendment process. The ordinance was reviewed by Community Planner Committee, the Technical Advisory Committee, and the Code Monitoring Team. On February 26, 2013, CPC recommended approval by a vote of 20 to 1 to 3. On March 13th, both the Technical Advisory Committee and Code Monitoring Team each recommended approval of the ordinance by a vote of 9 to 0, including recommending a change from the 15 business days to 10 days for the posting of the notice. That helps to clarify the time frame for the notice filing of the appeal. The Technical Advisory Committee also included in their motion a recommendation that changes be incorporated to stop frivolous appeals. We are prepared to take the code amendments to the full City Council for action, and that concludes staff report. We're here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Do we have any comment from the IBA City Attorney or Mayor's Office? Additional comments? I do have a question for Ms. Thomas. Did you happen to find any additional items worth noting during review of this ordinance?
As Ms. Winterwood mentioned, there's several cleanup items that are contained in here, such as the how the appeals will work after a notice public hearing. That's at the hearing officer planning commission level. Our current code does not require posting of NORAs for statutory exemptions, and this proposal does not change that. So I guess I would bring that out for your consideration and direction.
And what constitutes a statutory exemption?
Those are the exemptions that the state legislature has determined are exemptions from CEQA as opposed to categorical ones, which are developed by the Office of Planning and OPR. One example that is commonly used are pipelines less than a mile. That's a statutory exemption.
And are those appealable?
The state law says that decisions made by a non-elected decision maker that a project is not subject to this division, and the division is CEQA, are appealable to the elected decision-making body if there is one. We are allowed to create our own procedures for those appeals. Our procedures do not currently require a posting of a NORA for a statutory determination.
The statutory exemptions are different from the categorical and general rule exemptions. A statutory exemption is defined by as Ms. Thomas said, by the state legislature as exempt from the statute by law. The categorical exemption and the general rule, there is consideration of environmental impacts related to those exemptions. So a statutory exemption may not actually be benign in terms of environmental effects. The state legislature has exempted large projects, large construction projects. And again, the one that we most often use is the pipelines less than a mile. So the question is, if it's actually less than a mile and an exemption is issued by city manager or staff, and it's appealed, it's by law exempt. So the question would be, is it really less than a mile? And you don't really look into whether or not there's environmental effects associated with it. So it's a different type of exemption.
I would prefer to see all our, okay, we'll hear from the public speakers and then comment.
I just neglected to add, I believe there is an additional cost that would be associated with doing that staff would need to develop and report on.
All right. Mr. LaCava, followed by Matt Adams.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak. Joe LaCava, this time wearing my hat as chair of the Community Planners Committee. It's important to recognize the segue from the previous item to this item, something where the city was doing it properly, but this is an opportunity to do it better and making it easier for the public to understand how city works. As Ms. Winterode noted, Community Planners Committee did support this on a 20-1 vote, and I do note that we asked for some additional tweaks in the language just to make it a little bit easier for the average person to understand. Those have been incorporated, so I thank the department for that. So we're in full support of this. I'm personally in support of this, and I want to take a moment to thank the chair, Councilmember Leitner, who has been bird-dogging this for about a year and a half on this, and also to commend the department with their incredibly rapid response, not only back in 2011 to change their internal policy, but to respond to the Rules Committee and actually get this into the language of ordinance so it's permanent and everybody understands how it happens. So really a great job all around. I think this is really a great thing, and I encourage you to support it. Thank you.
Matt Adams, followed by Michael Nagy.
Good morning, Matthew Adams, representing the San Diego Building Industry Association, here to speak in favor of the staff proposal on the NORAs. I'm also a member of the Technical Advisory Committee, so we had a thorough discussion of this process the other day before we voted to support it, as is indicated on the PowerPoint slide. There was an area of discussion that we talked about as well, and that is there, and we didn't reach a conclusion on it, but it was just how do you, what kind of language could you insert to try to diminish frivolous appeals? You know, someone who's just appealing a project, not really on environmental grounds, but just on the fact that they don't like the project. That's kind of tricky to do that, but that is something that we think should be considered at some point, to include some sort of language that would try to at least recognize that we don't want to see frivolous appeals coming forward. We want to see if there's going to be an appeal that has to be based on some sort of response to the decision that was made on environmental grounds. But for the most part, we think it's fair. We think it's very comprehensive. It's part of the regulatory certainty that our industry advocates for on a regular basis. And we thank you for the opportunity to speak and ask you to support the staff proposal. Thank you.
Mr. Nagy?
Yeah, good morning. Michael Nagy with the Seneca Regional Chamber of Commerce. I would like to echo a lot what Matt said and don't want to repeat it everything, but I do stress or emphasize that we should have city staff adopt or go through the process of having some type of policy to avoid or diminish these meritless or frivolous appeals. There should be some type of basis where there should be some grants established for, rather than just saying as we don't like it or not in my backyard, there should be some type of criteria. Other than that, we believe, though, what the city is practicing right now and formalizing it, believe is very reasonable. So we urge you to adopt the item. Thank you.
I am looking for a motion, and as this is an action item, and I have a suggested motion to forward this to council with a recommendation for approval with the amendment that language be added to include notices of right to appeal for statutory exemptions made by the city manager or hearing officer and planning commission. Mr. Alvarez.
Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman Leitner. I want to thank the staff also for working on this. And according to my staff, there are some updates that are going to be made to the email alerts, which is good. By the way, I think I said this the last time, but I keep on getting the NORA alerts, and I really appreciate that. I think that's a great addition to the improvement that's occurred here. And so looking forward to more progress on the online usability for that. And then also, I asked the last time, and I'll ask it again. If you don't have the answer, that's okay. But I'm just curious if there's been a change in projects being appealed given the new noticing or the new implementation of this information. And if there is, I'd just be curious, just out of curiosity. But do you know if there's been a difference?
We believe that there have been more appeals filed because of this, which means that the noticing is working more. Individuals are being made aware of the decisions that are being made, particularly those decisions that are not made as part of a public hearing. And so I think that that has provided additional information to the public, yes.
Right, okay. Thanks again for your work on that. And I will make a motion to forward this recommendation to council.
Second.
And including the added language that Ms.
It's actually
Leitner-
the removal of a certain section of the code, I believe, if Ms. Thomas would clarify. It's to remove section 112.0310B2, I believe.
Yes, it would remove the language from 112.0310B2, and then it would list it as one of the types of projects, determinations for which an ORA would be posted under subsection A.
And was that the one that you also you said would require additional costs, or would?
Yes, it's my understanding that that would require extra work by staff, and so there's a cost associated with that. If it's a private project, that cost is borne by the private applicant. If it's a city project, such as a pipeline less than a mile, then that would be a cost borne by the city department.
Okay. So we would get the financial analysis with the hearing at full council?
If you make it part of the motion, yes, it should be part of the action going forward. Okay.
So that will be part of the motion.
We can try and estimate what the cost is. There are many, many, many statutory exemptions. And we do know that preparing a NORA can take about an hour's worth of staff time. And we do 5 to 10 a week, every week. So we'll try to pull together some numbers for that.
This is also, I think, in line with cost recovery. I mean, it's
Right.
not exactly that, but it is.
It is.
It's requiring work, and it's due to a specific project. Our goal has been, and especially this council president has been very adamant about recovering the costs of business at City Hall. And so,
It's part of the cost of open government, too.
right.
This is public right to know. So we have a motion by Councilmember Alvarez, a second by Vice Chair Faulkner. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, it's item 3, report from the Economic Development Division of the Development Services Department regarding fiscal year 2014 business improvement districts. It's the annual appropriation process and consideration of staff recommendations. I note, I think last year we forwarded this directly to council. So I'd like to introduce Alicia Martinez-Higgs, Community Development Specialist in the Economic Development Department, Meredith Dibden-Brown, Community Development Coordinator in the Economic Development Department, and Tom Tomlinson, Deputy Director of Economic Development. Also from the City Attorney's Office, Adam Wander is here for questions. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to the presentation.
Thank you. Good morning. The item today is the start of the annual appropriation process for the fiscal year 2014 business improvement districts. Business improvement districts are authorized under state law as a means to promote the economic revitalization and physical maintenance of the business districts in order to create jobs, attract new businesses, and prevent erosion of the business districts. Today, we are requesting that you approve taking this fiscal year 2014 bid budget appropriation package to the full council. The process at council will require 2 separate hearing dates. The first date requested is April 8th or 9th, involves the preliminary approval of the bid budget reports and the adoption of the resolution declaring the council's intention to levy assessments for the coming fiscal year and to give notice for the required public hearing. The second date is for the public hearing, and the requested date is May 7th. After receiving testimony at that meeting, council confirms the budget reports, which constitutes authorizing the levying of assessments for fiscal year 2014, and then approves the bid management agreements. As noted in the executive summary report, we are bringing forward budgets for Adams Avenue, City Heights, College Area, Diamond, Downtown, East Village, El Cajon Boulevard Central and Gateway, Gaslamp, Hillcrest, La Jolla, Little Italy, Mission Hills, North Park, Ocean Beach, Old Town, Pacific Beach, and San Isidro. City staff has worked collaboratively over the last 2 years with the bid associations and the bid council to make our payment process faster and more predictable for the associations. Continuing with these efforts, the bid associations are requesting a 5-year agreement this year rather than the normal annual agreement. Staff supports the proposal since this would save time for us as well as the bid associations. However, there are still safeguards in place should issues arise. The city would still be able to terminate the agreement for convenience with 60 days written notice. Also, council approval of the annual budget reports and authorization of levying of assessment process would still be required even with the 5-year agreement. As we reported last year, a group of business owners in the Diamond bid, with the support of Council District 4, incorporated the Diamond Business Association, DBA Southeastern Diamond Business District. As of mid-March 2013, the association was still awaiting designation of its tax-exempt status by the IRS. In order to proceed with the administration of the district, they are seeking council authorization to execute the fiscal year 2014 management agreement without the IRS determination in hand. However, City Council Policy 900-7, which is business improvement districts, states that the association shall be a legally formed California nonprofit corporation, which we interpret to mean that the nonprofit status needs to be in place in order to manage the bid. Therefore, unless council wishes to waive Council Policy 907, staff is recommending that we continue to provide services in coordination with the bid council and in collaboration with the Diamond Business Association until the IRS determination is received and the bid management agreement may be executed. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we have not received the required audit from San Isidro Business Association, but do anticipate having this by the requested April 8th and 9th date. This concludes our presentation, but we are happy to respond to questions.
Do we have any comments from the mayor's office, the IBA, or the city attorney on this item? We do have some public speakers, and then we'll go to questions and comments. Okay. I don't know if this is an organized presentation or not. Would you care to comment? We're starting with Mr. Patrick Edwards.
Well, in order to facilitate time for all of us, I'll make a presentation that's brief about the group and the individuals that I represent as the bid council president. And personally, I'm from North Park, and so I can speak to the North Park issue, but we're fine. North Park is great, so we're not worried about that. A couple things I heard in the staff
So
presentation.
how much time would you like?
3 minutes, not
Okay.
very brief. I just want to make some clarifications. The staff says that it was at the request of the bids that we go for a 5-year. It was really the city working with council. It was a mutual agreement to come up with that 5-year idea. We also need to mention that San Ysidro, unfortunately, their auditor had a heart attack. And so that would explain that situation. As far as Diamond, we do support going forward with the assistance to Diamond. As you know, Chairwoman, I worked in La Jolla to reestablish that bid, and we're working diligently in Diamond to make that happen, although it takes time with the IRS application. We understand that. The bid council has made several motions collectively to support going forward with that. With that said, I would just say that how wonderful it is to represent the bids, represent my city, and work with the city, both as an individual bid association and as a collective council. I need to point out, as a matter of pride, that San Diego is the only city in the country that has an active bid council representing the bids independent of the city, and we take that very seriously. And so I look forward to your support for this going forward, and anything we can do to answer your questions, I'll be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you, sir. We have some speakers who may or may not have ceded you time. Ms. Kaler, Mr. Kaler.
Hi, I'm Tiana Kaler. I'm the Assistant Director for the College Area Business District.
Okay. All right. Scott Kessler. Okay. Denise Knox. No need to speak. Ben Nichols. No need to speak. I notice all of you have little address labels that you have presented your, filled out your forms with. Enrique, okay. Jerry Trussell. Andres Ripa. Lisa Lem. Sheila Fortune. Good seeing you, Sheila. Bahija Hamras, I think. No, okay. And Sarah Burns. So thank you all for coming out, and thank you for your brevity. Comments from council members. Councilmember Emerald.
Well, I guess if we could take an example or something like that. I'd like to move the item and thank all of our bids. A couple of questions. San Ysidro has an April 8th deadline then to get the audit done.
Yes.
And have they indicated that they're on track to do that?
Yes, they have.
Okay. And then Diamond, if they haven't got their 501, what is it? I don't know if it's a C3 or, yeah.
Yes, they are going for C3.
What's the, going forward then, would we be able to, do they have the same deadline to get it together, or can we anticipate that over the course of the next year they'll be able to pull it together? What?
For Diamond, typically we would not be submitting the agreements for approval until May, and at that time, if they still haven't received the IRS letter of determination for the tax exempt status, then we would ask in that resolution that council approves to just note that city staff and bid council will continue to provide us support until such time as that letter is received, and then we would be authorized to execute the agreement at that point.
And are we just waiting for a letter to come in?
Yes.
Maybe, would you like to come up, Mr.
Yeah, they've formed a corporation. They've done quite a bit of the footwork. We've worked with them independently as a council, and staff has worked with them. It's, as you know, it's an existing bid that lapsed, And it was under Tony Young that they reinstated the assessment distribution, and efforts have been made at the ground to get support from the community, which is ongoing. And it's a difficult district geographically and culturally. And but those are not insurmountable obstacles. Right now, the obstacle is the federal approval, which takes time, and so we're hoping they'll be in good standing in time.
Okay, and I do too, because I'd like to see them be able to pull this together. It's it is sort of spread out, and there are lots of moving parts. But if they can pull it together, I think that they could really get some traction there and get some things accomplished. So, however our office could be helpful, we'd be happy to see how we might be able to assist them. But yeah, I would like to move this item, and again, thank you to all of our business improvement districts. Without you, we wouldn't have really the guidance on the ground. We wouldn't have the direction that our business communities have, and the city wouldn't be nearly as prosperous. And we know that small business in particular is the economic engine in San Diego. Most people are employed in small businesses, and so you fuel our economy, and it's your perseverance and your passion and obviously your dedication to your communities that makes it work. So thanks so very much for what you do. Oh, one other question. Are we doing okay on reimbursements?
Yes, thank you very much for asking that. A few years ago, as you mentioned, we changed from a reimbursable protocol to a direct disbursement, which changed 900-07, and we were very happy with that because now we know exactly what we can spend and do it appropriately and budget our time.
Excellent, because I know we had problems with you being reimbursed, and that created cash flow problems and hardships for the bids. With that, I hope we get a second. We'll move this along.
I'd be very happy to second it. I do have a couple questions relative to the Diamond Business Improvement District. Are the assessments being collected at this point in time?
Yes, they are.
And with respect to the IRS determination, is it necessary to have the response from the IRS, or is the application sufficient? Can we do something conditionally until they receive that?
It's
And
our
that's an
understanding.
attorney question, maybe? I don't know. I'll let you fight over who gets to answer it.
Adam Wander, Deputy City Attorney. Until the IRS officially declares them to be a nonprofit, then they're technically not a nonprofit. The requirement that they be a nonprofit corporation is in the city council policy.
So that could conceivably be waived at council for an interim period?
That portion of the council policy could be waived with respect to Diamond for an interim period, correct?
Okay. I think we might want to explore that if it isn't forthcoming, because I know how long we had to wait for the village merchants to be actually up and operational. It is a delay that maybe isn't so great to have when you're trying to operate. When you're trying to benefit the district, Also, since staff is here, what is the process for updating Council Policy 900-15, and when do you expect to be back here? It's the Small Business Enhancement Program. I know it's due to expire in November. Do you have a timeline in mind?
We were anticipating looking at that policy in probably April through June, and then hopefully coming to committee in July, perhaps September at the latest, to have something at council by October at the latest.
I don't believe we want it to expire.
No.
Okay. Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. And the authorization for the Diamond bid would occur during the budget process if they don't have the C3 status?
Yes.
Or when, Adam?
Yeah. So there would be the initial council hearing where you adopt a resolution of intention, and at the second hearing, which is the notice public hearing, City Council would approve the budget and authorize entering into an agreement. In that resolution, I think you could include the waiver of the council policy if necessary.
Okay. And on the San Isidro issue, which is I should have heard about this before, but I had not. I apologize. the audit needs to be completed by April the 8th?
Yes, they had begun working with their previous auditor, and then with his death, they had to hire another firm.
Okay.
So they are in the process of working with their new auditor to get that completed.
And what is the deadline on this audit? What if it's not completed by the 8th? What are the consequences of that?
We at the May 7th public hearing with that reso of intention, you would be authorizing us to enter into agreement. We wouldn't enter into that agreement until we receive their audit.
Okay, all right. And for the bid council, on the posting of websites, you were here for the previous discussion with the Director of Open Government. Are all the councils being able to do that? Is there some difficulties that they are encountering? Is there any assistance that can be provided for that?
Well, that's our job, and as the bid council, Tiffany's our executive director, has already done that, and so that's what we do. We make sure that we implement the attachments to the renewal contract as ordered by the council, and that's been done.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion by Ms. Emerald with a second by myself, and all in favor, please say aye. Oh, I beg your pardon, Mr. Faulkner.
It's okay. Take it
I'm in a
personally.
rush this morning.
That's
Vice Chair
okay.
Faulkner.
You're doing a very efficient job today, Chairman Leitner.
It's after, the bid council reps were so quick.
They were good. And I'll be brief, too. Just a couple of, the agreements will be 5 years now, of course, but the assessment reviews are on an annual basis. That's not going to change, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then, are there any other pending reforms to BIDs or anything that you want to make us aware of at this point?
Not that we're aware of.
Just anybody from the BID Council, anything? You talked about the direct disbursement, which spent a fair amount of time on and was fully supportive on, and I'm glad to see that is actually working. But anything else that you wanted to bring to our attention?
I will mention that on a parallel argument to the direct disbursement of the assessment monies, we have worked and are still working on those 6 members of our council which have property-based disbursements, and that's an ongoing situation, but it's not relevant to this discussion.
Okay. Well, I would just say I'm happy to support the motion. Wanted to thank all of the representatives from the BIDs that are here, have been, will be, and remain a strong supporter of business improvement districts. And in fact, there are other entities and neighborhoods in my council district that are looking to start BIDs, which I have supported them exploring that opportunity because I think bids are important. They work, and it's our job to help support them. And I just wanted to say especially thanks to the folks that are here today from OB Main Street Association and Discover Pacific Beach. When I look at not only the services that they provide to the businesses, but the community services that they provide in terms of whether it's the street fairs, chili cook-offs, holiday parades, Crystal Pier tree lighting, etc. It's much more than just businesses. It's businesses interacting with our community character, community pride, and in my opinion, it remains money very well spent. So I think these changes today are very good, particularly on the 5-year aspect of it, and I'm happy to support the motion.
One last thing, I did want to congratulate Mr. Edwards on getting the Diamond District going, and I cannot believe it. I know how much help you were with the reinstitution of the operator for the La Jolla bid. Thank you very much, and thank you for your passion, interest. I know you speak eloquently on the business improvement districts when given the opportunity. So I appreciate your brevity today as well. So all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to our next agenda item. Item 4 is consideration of a proposed draft resolution regarding immigration reform. I think it's good timing. There's a naturalization ceremony going on right now. Before I turn this item over to Councilmember Alvarez, I would just like to note how proud I am of partnering with you and Councilmember Emerald on the proposed resolution that we have in front of us today. I look forward to hearing input from my fellow committee members, and I think that working together, we have drafted a comprehensive and progressive resolution that is reflective not only of San Diego's, but our nation's values. This is just a small but important step that I hope supports and encourages our federal colleagues to set up a clear and reasonable path for citizenship. I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Alvarez. We need a common sense approach for moving forward. So, turning the chair to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to thank Chairwoman Leitner for docketing this for discussion. We have an opportunity today to send a message to our congressional delegation about how we feel about one of the most important issues facing our nation. This issue is a civil rights issue. It's the civil rights issue of the moment, probably right on par with marriage equality. And I think it's appropriate for us in the most dynamic binational region in this country, here in San Diego, to send a message to our leaders that we feel strongly that comprehensive immigration reform needs to be adopted. We tried this several years ago, 2007, before I was involved, before I was a council member. A lot of us spent a lot of time marching, going to Washington to lobby, and unfortunately we fell short then. And falling short again of comprehensive immigration reform is not an option. I know for a lot of people, they're jumping sort of on the bandwagon of immigration reform because it's political survival. That's not what it's about for me, and I think for those of us who have supported it for a long time. This issue is not about political survival. This is about doing what's right. And doing what's right is to provide more than 11 million families, people throughout this nation a pathway to citizenship, legalization, to be incorporated into the fabric of our society. Tens of thousands of people in San Diego, many, many more family members in San Diego. And so the time for us to send a message to Washington on this issue cannot be more appropriate. And I hope to hear from the members of the public. We spent a lot of time. I worked with 19 at least that I can count organizations to come forward today with language for this council so that we could bring forward a bipartisan effort and send a bipartisan message. And it took some time and it took some deliberation, but we're here today. And I will make the motion when we come back to comments. But again, I want to thank the chair, those of all of you in the audience who are here, who worked with us on putting this together. I know there was a lot of exchange back and forth. It was a long negotiation, and I appreciate your patience throughout this, and I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Alvarez. Do we have any comments from the City Attorney, IBA, or Mayor's Office?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Mr. Estrada.
I would just like to thank the chair and council members Alvarez and Emerald for bringing this resolution forward. The mayor has a long history of support for comprehensive immigration reform, supported it throughout his tenure in Congress because he believes that it is extremely important for our economy. It would give us an economic boost. And also because, and perhaps more importantly, because it's good for our families. And he strongly believes that there should be a strong family reunification piece attached to comprehensive immigration reform. So he'd like to just thank you all for bringing this forward and just let you know that he strongly supports comprehensive immigration reform. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I was just wondering if Mr. Alvarez might want to summarize your opening comments in Spanish for our
Sure.
audience.
Very quickly, and thank you. En español, para los que están presentes, dar las gracias por el apoyo. Va a ser un mensaje, queremos mandar un mensaje a nuestros representantes en Washington, que San Diego está presente y que estamos unidos para pasar una reforma migratoria que dé la legalización y un derecho a a ser ciudadano de este país, para tener todos los derechos y todas las responsabilidades que vienen con esa oportunidad. Yo vengo de padres inmigrantes que con la última reforma migratoria tuvieron la oportunidad de legalizar a ellos y mis hermanos, y sé personalmente la importancia de una legalización, de tener una manera de que la gente que no está aquí con documentos los obtenga, se haga ciudadano y participe en nuestra sociedad. Así que gracias por venir.
Also ask the mayor's representative, Mr. Estrada, to comment as well.
Muchas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Este tema tan importante. Solamente les quería avisar lo que dije en inglés, que el alcalde Filner tiene un récord muy largo, tiene mucho tiempo trabajando para reformar las leyes migratorias, porque es muy importante para nuestra economía, pero también es mucho más importante para nuestras familias, ¿no? Es absolutamente necesario que cualquier reforma de las leyes migratorias tenga como un elemento la reunificación de nuestras familias. Muchas gracias.
We're going to do public comment. We're limiting that to 2 minutes per person. We're starting with Michael Hudland, representing 76th District Assemblyman Rocky Chavez. Thank you for being here.
Council members and staff, thank you for having me here this morning. Unfortunately, the Assembly member could not be here. He's up in Sacramento in session, but he wanted to make sure that I came here and delivered a statement from him. There are many reasons for bipartisan immigration reform that need to be addressed. Public safety at a community level is impacted strongly by the inability of this country to deal with immigration. Many victimized immigrants are afraid to approach authorities because of the fear of their undocumented status. I have also spoken with members of the armed forces who are serving despite not being citizens. This is the right thing to do for the safety of our families and for those who serve our country. That is why I support this resolution to Congress for bipartisan immigration reform. And I'd also like to include a copy of the draft as well.
Thank you. We have an organized presentation, I believe, by Pedro Rios, and the other speakers are Christian Ramirez and Andrea Guerrero. Are there any other speakers in that group or not? How much time would you like? Mr. Rios?
Thank you. I think perhaps 1 minute per additional speaker would be appropriate.
And have they submitted slips?
They have.
Okay, so when I call their names, if they would let us know that they've already spoken, that would be great. How much time would you like? 2 minutes for these three, so that's 6 minutes. How many community members?
Can you raise your hand if you've submitted a slip to speak? Pueden levantar la mano si pidieron hablar. 1, 2, 3, 7.
Okay. I'm sorry?
7 additional.
Okay, so we'll start you at 13 minutes and let us know how it's going.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Once again, my name is Pedro Rios. I'm the chairperson for the San Diego Immigrant Rights Consortium. I have been leading the efforts on the San Diego Table for Immigration Policy, which is a coalition of multiple organizations from throughout San Diego County that have been brought together to essentially talk about how we can ensure that San Diego has an important voice that gets heard in Washington. And I think that I want to begin by thanking Councilmember David Alvarez for his leadership in bringing this measure forward and bringing this resolution forward and bringing together his colleagues to ensure that San Diego is heard in our multiple trips to D.C. As advocates, we've been speaking with members of the Senate who are part of the Gang of Eight about how to bring forth a message that's heard clear from border communities. And one of the things that they told us is that they can hear us until they're blue in the face, but they really need to hear from municipal governments. They need to hear from those in local positions of power that are able to speak directly about how immigration reform would improve the lives of the residents. And it's because of that effort that Councilmember David Alvarez has brought forward a bipartisan resolution that addresses most, if not all, of the important points that the Senate Gang of Eight have brought forward. These, of course, include the commitment to having a broad pathway to citizenship, which is fundamental to ensuring that people are able to adjust their status and are able to live a life with dignity without having to fear whether their children will be detained or whether they will be detained as they're going to work. A bipartisan effort that includes the protection of the rights of working families. As you see here, there are many community members who are members of SEIU, who are working members of our communities who contribute in various ways. They're here in support of this resolution as well. And finally, a resolution that speaks to how we, as a uniquely positioned border community, we can offer a perspective that perhaps someone in San Francisco or someone in the interior of the country doesn't have to offer. And that's ensuring that our ports of entry are adequately staffed with appropriate infrastructure, ensuring that there's appropriate oversight mechanisms to hold our border patrol officers accountable when there are actions that perhaps should be investigated. And for that reason, we're here in support of the resolution. We think that it appropriately presents the major points that have been presented in the Senate's platform that have been discussed with the White House, and that we're hopefully will see similar language coming out of the House of Representatives. It is my pleasure to have worked with Councilmember Alvarez, and it's my pleasure to now have all these community members who are here in support of the resolution. I'll cede my time and ask for the next speaker to come forward.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cristian Ramirez, and I am the Human Rights Director at Alliance San Diego. I want to thank committee members for taking on this very important issue in our nation. It goes without saying that an entire generation has passed since David's parents and my parents were able to get legal status as a result of comprehensive or the legalization package that President Reagan then offered and Democratic Congress approved. So we know that the only way to move this forward is through bipartisan effort. And that's why we are in support of Mr. Alvarez's resolution. We believe that we have met the requirements to ensure that our border is secure. We understand that we need to have workers here that allow our businesses to thrive, but at the same time that we protect the rights of workers so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. So we have an opportunity here, folks, to stand together for the first time on this issue in San Diego. And we are excited about the opportunity for this watershed moment to occur, that finally the city of San Diego, that has for many years turned its back on immigration issues, now we're standing together, not over partisan politics, but because we need to ensure that we have a pathway to citizenship for the millions of hardworking folks that call the United States home. And that opportunity will come if cities like San Diego stand together, united on this issue. We're ready to work with everyone here to ensure that we have the concerns of everyone listed in the resolution. We have talked to business leaders, we have talked to labor leaders, to faith leaders, to community members, and we believe we are just one step away from making that happen. So we thank you for that opportunity, and we urge all of you to stand together in support of this resolution.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Guerrero. I'm a resident of North Park. I'm Executive Director at Alliance San Diego, and I'm also the co-chair of the Southern Border Communities Coalition, which is made up of organizations from here to Brownsville who are interested in seeing a comprehensive, humane, workable immigration reform benefit the border region, because we know that for us in the border region, it is not enough to have pathway to citizenship. That's critically important, but we also need to take this opportunity to invest in our port infrastructure, our border infrastructure. What we have seen is an investment in our enforcement infrastructure, but that has been as much of a burden as it has been a benefit, and We know that the cost of that to us here in border communities has been a lack of investment in our port infrastructure, and based on what we know about how much the U.S. economy depends on the goods and services coming through our ports, our own port alone, that we know it's critically important to invest in those ports. There is no one in San Diego that is not touched by immigration reform potential. 1/4 of San Diegans are immigrants themselves, and I would venture to say that there is not one person in San Diego who is not either an immigrant, family of an immigrant, or works, prays, plays, or studies with an immigrant. We are all connected to the immigrant community, and we are all invested in making sure that whatever immigration reform comes out of our federal government, it works for San Diego, that it's inclusive with a pathway to citizenship, that it provides worker protections, and because we are a border community, we, more than any other interior communities, really need to elevate the part about port infrastructure and oversight of border agents, because that issue only affects us, and it's only an issue if we elevate it. Thank you so much. We hope that you will move forward with a resolution, and that we will support and echo the bipartisan compromise negotiation that's happening at the federal level. It's real easy to get sucked into partisan politics. We've certainly seen some inklings of that in the past in other places. We know that San Diego has a way of coming together where other places don't, and we hope that we won't get distracted by anything but the end goal, which is federal immigration reform that supports our communities. Thanks.
Buenos días.
Good morning.
Mi nombre es Sara García y represento Casa de Vecinos Organizados.
My name is Sara Garcia and I represent Casa Vecinos Organizados.
Nosotros creemos en la necesidad de que la ciudad de San Diego se comprometa a pasar a apoyar una reforma migratoria con camino a la ciudadanía.
We believe that the City Council should support a resolution that supports immigration reform towards that includes legalization for you toward the path towards citizenship.
Que no abogue por más patrulla fronteriza.
One that does not support more border patrol.
Y que una a las familias.
And that unites families.
Ustedes son padres, hijos y hermanos.
You are all brothers, sisters.
Y tienen la sensibilidad para entender la importancia de mantener la familia unida.
And you can definitely appreciate the need for ensuring family unity.
Y también tienen la sensibilidad para entender.
And you also have the passion to understand.
Que hace falta un cambio en las leyes migratorias.
There needs to be a fundamental change to immigration laws.
Para que sean más justas y humanas.
So that they're just and they're humane.
Todos los que estamos aquí presentes.
All of us that are here present today.
Somos personas trabajadoras, hombres y mujeres.
We are working men and women.
Que hemos contribuido con este país.
That have contributed to this country.
Y que merecemos ser escuchados.
And we deserve to be listened to.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and continue. My name is Benjamin Prado. I am the program coordinator for the American Friends Service Committee, a human rights office here in San Diego that for over 10 years have documented the gross violations of human rights to members of this city, men, women, and children who have been separated because of the unjust, inhumane border policies that exist today. The levels of violence that have been committed against citizens, I myself have been arrested, and I'm a U.S. citizen, by Border Patrol. So just echoing the need that we don't need more Border Patrol. We need our humane immigration policies that keep families together, that ensure the rights of working people in this city. Y nomás para traducir, sí quisiera mencionar que como organizador con el Comité de Amigos por más de 10 años, que yo también siendo ciudadano he sido victimizado por parte de la patrulla fronteriza, perfilado, arrestado Y en este caso necesitamos políticas que sean humanas, que respeten los derechos de los trabajadores y no necesitamos más políticas que separan a familias, particularmente que violan los derechos de nuestras comunidades. Por lo tanto, sí apoyamos la resolución presentado por el concejal Álvarez. Muchas gracias.
Hello, everyone. My name is Genoveva Aguilar. I'm one of the founders of Casa de Vecinos Organizados, and I'm here representing SEIU USWW. Si todos los de Casa y los de SEIU se pueden levantar, por favor. I'm here representing SEIU USWW. We represent more than 40,000 janitors, security officers, airport services workers, and other property service workers across California. We're part of the San Diego Table Immigration and Policy, and we are here in support of the immigration resolution. Immigration reform is essential to our workforce and our community. Last year, E-Verify and federal audits, we lost more than 300 members who had health benefits and who were working as janitors for more than 10 years and some 20 years. That's 300 San Diego families who were greatly impacted. As a result, these janitors are either not working or working in jobs with minimal pay and no benefits. Having a workforce without a good paying union jobs that provide health benefits doesn't benefit anyone. It destroys the health of a vibrant community as there is no stable income coming into a family home, therefore destroying the family structure. Without a steady income, they are not able to get back and contribute to enrich our community. Not having immigration reform is destroying the San Diego values. We were where we believe in the integrity of our communities and want the best for our residents and the best for our future of our children. If we believe in the future of San Diego communities, then we need to pass this resolution. Thank you.
I'm going to return to calling people up because so each person coming up will have 2 minutes, and we have Lucero is next.
There you go. Good morning, Chair Leitner and committee members. My name is Lucero. I'm a high school student. Let me start by my credentials. I'm valedictorian at my high school. I'm involved and I'm a leader in more than 11 clubs on campus, including the school senate, the principal's roundtable advisory board, academic decathlon, and so forward. I have completed over 350 hours of community service, most of which were dedicated to political campaigns, about environmental events, such as the Balboa Park Earth Fair, and tutoring elementary school students. I have been labeled as an AP Scholar with distinction by the College Board. I have been interviewed by Princeton, Harvard, and Yale, and told personally that I am a qualified member to attend their universities. So far, I have been admitted to San Diego State University and to the University of San Diego with a $60,000 scholarship, merit scholarship from the Board of Trustees. My goal is to enter the world of international relations. I want to incorporate my love for law, for languages, I'm trilingual, and for politics. But there's a problem with that. I'm undocumented. My parents brought me here when I was a few months old. That happened after the devaluation of the peso when my parents lost everything they had. They were young, and we came in here with tourist visas, and the plan was to stay only for a little while until they got everything settled. However, I entered school. It turns out that I excelled in school. I did very well, and time passed, and by then we were more than tourists. I grew up with American ideals. As a matter of fact, I had no idea. I was undocumented until a few years ago. My parents had always been very good at circumventing any questions that I had. For instance, when schools asked me for my social security number, they'd tell me that, oh, you don't give that information out, or, oh, don't worry about it, we'll turn the paper in for you. But there came a point where it was just too hard to conceal. That was about high school when I actually had to turn papers myself, and I started applying for scholarships. And many scholarships would start asking me about citizenship, which was a question that I'd never really asked myself. And that's when I noticed that I was really nowhere. Yes, I am Mexican. My roots are in Mexico, but my life is in the United States since I was barely born. And so I've found a lot of difficulty in applying to colleges. Sometimes I don't know if I'm an international student or if I'm a resident. Also, to add to the complication, we are currently in a state of homelessness because both my parents lost their jobs, and none of us are able to get a job because of our circumstances to reestablish economic well-being. So things like deferred action and the DREAM Act have given me some kind of breath of air and some kind of relief. However, it's not enough. I think there's more to do. For example, I have no idea how I'm going to get to a school like Harvard or Princeton if I can't get on a plane, or how I'm supposed to get a license or get a job. So I know that the expectation for someone like me to even graduate high school is very low. I'm undocumented and I'm homeless. Yet I have already become a very highly competitive scholar, as competitive as anybody with papers and as anybody with a fixed social security number. And I can only imagine what I would contribute if I actually had that. So my goal is to give back to this country, and I need all the help I can get to give back and help out. And thank you for listening to me today.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Krug.
Good morning. I'm actually in awe of the young woman that just spoke. I really applaud her for the courage that it takes to come before a body as yourself. I am before you today to implore you to please pass this resolution. I have come to know so many people and so many families that are challenged by the differences within their families, having undocumented people, having documented people, having children who came before a group I'm a part of, Raza Educators, whose parents had been picked up during the bakery raid, and the children were left here in the States with the parents having been taken. It just, I mean, they are American citizens, but it just the amount of heartache and constant fear and constant having to plan for plan A and B and C is stripping so much of the productivity of these very hardworking people who are part of our American fabric. I just really want to see us manifesting what the Statue of Liberty is supposed to be there for, which is having open arms to everyone and incorporating us, everybody, into our fabric. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Manuel Enriquez?
Hello, my name is Manuel Enriquez, and I'm a member of an immigrant family. And as an immigrant youth, I am here to urge you to adopt the resolution in support of immigration reform that has been proposed by Council Member David Alvarez. This resolution will plant the seeds for San Diego to support a comprehensive immigration bill that includes a clear pathway to citizenship for thousands of community members living in San Diego who every day contribute to our city and our country. This resolution is important because if we look at the effects of Arizona's SB 1070 and Alabama's HB 56, it is clear that we need to establish a framework for a policy that does not racially profile, criminalize, and discriminate against our immigrant community. As a border city, we need to recognize that every San Diego community member will be deeply affected by a law that increases border enforcement and militarization. A recent example of excess border enforcement is the shooting of Valeria Monique Tachiquin, who was shot by a Border Patrol agent in regular civilian clothes. She was a U.S. citizen, and she was murdered a block away from my house in Chula Vista. By adopting this resolution, you can ensure that we have a humane approach to immigration reform that generates a positive environment for all San Diego families. By moving away from violence and by incorporating our immigrant community members who come to this country in hopes of a better life and being productive members of society. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Jacob Regalado.
Honorable Chair, Council members, good morning. My name is Jacob Regalado. I'm here on behalf of Lorena Gonzalez and the San Diego Imperial County's Labor Council. Immigration reform is an issue that transcends every value that is dear to Americans, whether that's family, or freedom, equality, or economic vitality. At the heart of this issue is the status of citizen and what it means to be an equitable and active participant in this nation. And it's because of this I want to make something very clear, that the resolution you consider today must include a clear and definitive support for an achievable pathway to citizenship. I want to make that very clear. If we do not have immigration reform that achieves a clear pathway to citizenship, we're simply promoting a system that creates a second-class group of workers. We're encouraging the continued exploitation of the American workforce, and that hurts everybody in this country, whether they're immigrant or not. I believe that San Diego's business leaders and community leaders have already made it very clear that immigration reform must include this provision for a pathway to citizenship. Again, we are here to support Councilmember Alvarez's resolution, and we encourage you to pass it today. Thank you.
Thank you. Virginia Franco will be followed by Homayara Yousefi, I think.
Hi, my name is Virginia Franco, and I am a retired school teacher. I have seen the tragedies of the breakup of families throughout my 30 years in education. Of some of them have been spoken of here, and I really endorse and I'm moved by the last couple of speakers who spoke about their experience. Like the many citizens, I am for the broad immigration reform legislation, which would grant the permanent resident status to undocumented workers and their children. It would establish an expeditious and non-punitive road to citizenship for workers and their families. That would then, that would make illegal, I'm sorry, I got lost. I got lost, I'm sorry, I have handwritten notes. Okay, what is happening now, I'll just make this up. The racial profiling for arbitrarily checking individuals without immigration papers. This practice effectively criminalizes those of us breathing while brown. Many U.S. citizens oppose any and all guest worker programs because they would only exploit the workers involved, but also undercut workers' rights to secure humane wages and working conditions, especially in the service and agricultural sector. The transparent immigrant rights and labor organizations promote family reunification to halt deportation, to demilitarize all borders, and to help all of our children, regardless of legal status, to realize that dream that young woman spoke about and attaining a university education. Legalizing the status of all immigrant workers and families while providing for a transparent, expeditious road to citizenship, which embodies basic democratic principles, those governed by laws at a democratic society, as a democratic society should, were an equal say in making such laws. My last comment is by reducing and eliminating these wrong laws against immigrants and their families, we must develop this humane policies to respond to the presence of nearly the 12 million undocumented people already living here in the United States. An injury to one is an injury to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Yousefi, followed by Norma Chavez-Peterson.
Good morning. No worries. My name is Humaira Yousefi. I'm a policy advocate with the local chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU. I myself am an immigrant. My family came here from Afghanistan when I was a child in pursuit of safety and opportunity for our family. And I think this is an issue that is really important. The ACLU is in strong support of Council Member Alvarez's resolution. A broad and inclusive pathway to citizenship is a necessary component of immigration reform. It will bring millions of contributing members of our communities out of the shadows. This resolution also recognizes the need to protect the civil liberties and due process rights of all individuals in our communities, regardless of their immigration status. We believe that this resolution will send a strong message to our congressional delegation that we need a united support for immigration reform now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Norma Chavez-Peterson. Okay, Rafael Perez. Will be followed by Mr. Contreras, I think, or I think it's Miguel Contreras.
Hello, my name is Rafael Perez, and I'm a resident of District 3 and also the proud son of an immigrant. Also, I'm a local business leader and chapter president of NAREP San Diego, a local real estate trade organization. As immediate past president of a Latino-based organization, I had the opportunity of meeting hundreds of young individuals who are in college across the country, and their stories of those who are undocumented who had to struggle and work to get their college education has been a great reminder of how we are missing out on an economic opportunity, and there's so much talent out there that's underutilized and hasn't been given an opportunity to thrive. And I'm just here in support of a resolution to support immigration reform. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Contreras, I think.
Yes.
You have very compact handwriting.
Sorry about that. I broke my hand a few years ago, so my writing looks like a third grader's writing. My name is Miguel Contreras. I'm here as a local Latino business owner, very much in favor of immigration reform. And I'm also in favor of a true bipartisan resolution that includes a broad spectrum of input from our community to include local business and business leaders. And I hope that the resolution reflects that input as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mark Dillon, followed by Ricardo Favela, I think.
Yes, thank you. My name is Mark Dillon, and I'm speaking as the chair of the San Diego Human Relations Commission and in support of the Alvarez resolution. Thank you very much for being part of the sea change that is occurring around immigration. And I think it's time we ask a new question. What is it about the word legal in legal immigration you don't understand? And I think what's happening is we have a mind change that we have to start looking at some of the old problems in new ways. And the linkage between border enforcement and legal immigration is one of those. We're fighting the last war if we want to build up our border infrastructure before implementing immigration change that allows people to fill out forms, wait in line, will suddenly have lines, and come across legally. Those who think that people really want to pay a coyote thousands of dollars and be dragged across the desert instead of talking to a faceless bureaucrat is wrong. It'd be a welcome change to have a pathway that will reduce the number of people coming across the border. And if you're fiscally conservative, wouldn't you rather wait to right-size that effort based on the impact of reform to see what's really necessary instead of bulking up now for a problem we're trying to solve legally? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ricardo Favela.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to allow me to give a statement. My name is Ricardo Favela. I work for the Alliance San Diego, dealing with civil and human rights issues, among other issues. On a few occasions, my work has led me to deal with issues in my hometown in Fallbrook, especially related to Border Patrol conduct. About a year and a half ago, the Border Patrol conducted a raid on a day labor site in Fallbrook, and it just so happened that this day labor site was on church property, on church grounds, at the St. Peter's Catholic Church, from which my family has been a part of for many years. We attempted to find and speak to the local agencies in Murrieta to see who could take responsibility and see who we could talk to about these actions, and we couldn't find anyone that would step forward. Recently, about a couple weeks ago, groups in Riverside were dealing with the same issue of Border Patrol going around and raiding day labor centers. Their lawyer, they held a protest in front of the Murrieta station. Their lawyer attempted to submit complaints to the office, and the complaints were not accepted, and they were told to, if they wanted to submit complaints, they needed to go to Chula Vista and submit complaints at the Chula Vista office. For people like myself who live on the other end of the county and in other counties, this means traveling over an hour to 2 to 3 hours away just to submit a complaint when they can go to a local office that's much closer. I believe this is absurd for an agency that claims to be part of our communities. An agency that can't take responsibility and accountability and speak to their local constituents doesn't deserve a penny more. And I believe it is irresponsible to continue talking about border enforcement when there's no control over the Border Patrol. For that reason, I'd like to commend this resolution for recognizing the short-sightedness of an immigration reform being contingent on more border enforcement. We need accountability, we need a better border, and I commend you for standing up for responsible government and not only elevating the voices of San Diego, but for those of us in the border region. I thank you beforehand for your bold leadership.
Thank you. We have two speakers who have indicated they do not wish to speak, just wanted to register a position in favor. If you have changed your mind, would you please let me know? It's Danielle Scarborough. Did you wish to speak? Okay. And then Robert McNamara, did you wish to speak? Okay. That concludes public testimony. I do want to thank everyone for being so respectful, for actually coming down and spending quite a bit of time with us, and for sharing your testimony this morning. I would turn it over to Councilmember Alvarez at this point.
Thank you, Chairwoman Leitner, and thank you to all the members of the public for your testimony, the very personal testimonies in particular. I am encouraged by some of you who've spoken so openly about your situation, in particular Lucero, the student who told us her story. And her story is not uncommon, folks. It happens all the time, and many of us know someone in that same situation. Lucero is one of the lucky ones, though. She might be able to attend college on a scholarship. There's a lot of young men and women, and since this is sort of an opening up session, I guess I should open up. I have someone in my family, directly in my family, who was a pretty good student, did quite well, and should have gone on to college, but didn't because he's also undocumented. And he wasn't able to get the scholarships, and his parents couldn't afford to send him to college. If you're an undocumented student, no matter how good of a student you are, you don't qualify for financial aid. And unless you get the scholarships that pay for your schooling, you won't go. We're wasting a lot of talent. Talent is going to waste in this country because we are not putting forward the right policies when it comes to immigration reform. Also, it's funny that we're sitting here, and I'm kind of hoping to channel a little bit of Ronald Reagan here. It's really strange from my side, but my colleagues who don't understand Spanish, I opened up a little bit earlier also, and I shared with the members in Spanish that if it wasn't for the 1986 IRCA, my parents would not have been legal, and my siblings would not have been legalized, and they wouldn't have become citizens. and they would have missed out on a lot. And that's why this issue is so important to me, and that's why I really tried very, very hard for my council colleagues who are weighing whether or not to support this. Tried very hard to work on language that I thought would be the most bipartisan effort that has a very simple message. It's a message of civil rights. I'll go back to that. Correcting a wrong. And it's a message that we need to acknowledge that there are people here in this country who are impacted, millions of people, millions of families, and that unless we move forward with a very simple message, that's all that this resolution has. It's actually quite simple. It's a message of a pathway to citizenship, to full rights as U.S. members of our society in the U.S. That's all it is. I know that other members of this council put something out a couple days ago, and there are some things in that resolution that make some sense, and there's some that absolutely I don't believe in. And I hope that our action today will send a strong message, because I think there are some members of Congress in our delegation in particular who I think are considering supporting comprehensive immigration reform. I think on the bipartisan front. And we need to help them get there. And I think that if we as San Diego send that message that we're united and we can do it and you should be able to do it as well, we'll have a pathway to citizenship as a core feature to immigration reform with a lot of other stuff that we know is going to be included. But that's to be negotiated, including, we know, learning English and U.S. history and government and all of those other things and many, many others that we can discuss. But the core principle of immigration reform for the coalition, for business leaders, I heard people asking if business leaders are in support. Yeah, business leaders are in support. If any of you heard last week's press conference that was held by Nathan Fletcher and the core supporters, business leaders, law enforcement leaders, they all support a pathway to citizenship, and we should as well. It's core to anything else that gets done as part of immigration reform, and I hope that my colleagues support it for that reason. And so I'll move the resolution as presented and the backup forward to approval to the City Council, and I ask my colleagues to support it as well.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Alvarez. I note that one of the commenters did speak to the fact that the people we pray, play, study, and work with, we know someone. So that was a very poignant statement, and it's a very true statement, and I relate very much to it. Councilmember Kersey.
Thank you, Chair Leitner. I just want to thank everybody for being here today. Gracias a todos por estar aquí hoy con nosotros y por sus pensamientos. Es un tema muy importante a nosotros y a ustedes. What am I trying to say here? No, you can't. You can't. It's ustedes quieren reforma del sistema de inmigración y nosotros también. Y queremos nosotros un acuerdo. To everybody else, as I was walking in today, as Chair Leitner mentioned, there was a naturalization ceremony going on outside. And I think it was very emblematic of what we're talking about today, and also mirrors the debate in Washington. We know that Washington, for a long time, has neglected to fix what is a very broken immigration system, and we need reform. We want reform that ensures a safe border, unites families, and strengthens our local economy. And for the first time in nearly a decade, we've got a chance, a real chance, to see reform come out of Congress on immigration. This is probably the only time I'll say this, but I hope that the Council can take a page from Congress and work on a real bipartisan resolution in support of immigration reform. For me, I've long been a supporter of reform. It's not something I'm trying to score political points on. This is something that has a direct impact on our city and people that I care about. Just an example of that, I've got one of my staff members who's a U.S. citizen. His wife is from Italy, and I think this signifies the global reach of this issue. They got married, and she wanted to become an American citizen. And she never had a question that she wanted to do that. The question was how hard it was going to be and how long it was going to take. And for them, it was very tough. They wanted to apply for a green card and citizenship at the same time. There was no way for them to do that for her. And so the process, as all of you I'm sure are aware, was very costly and very confusing. They had to take time off work. And we're talking about two people who were and are employed. They've got master's degrees. They had committed their lives to each other, and they just wanted to be recognized as married U.S. citizens. And it took over 3 years for them to get approval under those favorable circumstances. And we know that there are many who do not have favorable circumstances like that, and it takes even longer. And we heard from earlier in the testimony from people who came here when they were minors. The young woman who spoke earlier, I think, had some great poignant comments on this issue. And it breaks my heart to see someone like that who is clearly doing very well in school, wants to continue with her studies, and is facing roadblocks to do that. We can do better. We need Congress to put forward a rational process for approving or denying immigration applications in a timely manner. At the same time, we have a visa system that is broken. It's clogged with applications, rife with people on expired visas, and not tailored to provide the talent that our U.S. companies tell us they need. We've heard from some of our largest employers like Qualcomm that they have hundreds of jobs open and available today, but they lack workers with the necessary skills to fill them. We must do better. The nation needs to have an immigration system that clears out the backlog of visas, particularly in the family and employment categories, addresses visa overstays, and ensures that U.S. companies have the talent they need to be successful if, for whatever reason, local talent's not available. We need a system that encourages foreign students who graduate from American universities to use their talents here in the United States, particularly in the science, technology, engineering, and math disciplines, which Chair Leitner talks about a lot as our STEM disciplines. We need a rational, efficient, and streamlined visa process that is fundamental to our ability to attract and retain the best and brightest minds from around the globe. Now, we all know that immigration affects people who need a visa or want to become a citizen, but in San Diego, it affects all of us, citizens and non-citizens alike. With a combined population of over 5 million people, San Diego Tijuana is a worldwide hub for trade, commerce, and tourism. Our city, our companies, our jobs, our lives are linked together. We're linked by our boarding crossings, like the San Isidro Port of Entry, which is the busiest crossing in the world with approximately 50,000 vehicles and 25,000 pedestrians crossing every day. But the federal government still has not fully funded this project. Now, you've heard Mr. Alvarez talking in the past, and I've talked in the past about this project and getting the federal government through the GSA to fund it. Every year, the federal government fails to fund this major infrastructure project. The region's economy loses billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs. Any reform that's taken on immigration must include a commitment by the federal government to improve legal crossing at our port of entry as well as greater border security. It should crack down on identity theft and document falsification, deport those who pose a threat to national security or have a serious criminal background, and include an employment verification system that holds employers accountable for hiring people they shouldn't. Improvements to cross-border infrastructure, border security, and identity verification is critical. It's critical for commerce, it's critical for cultural exchange, and it's critical for the economic health of border cities like San Diego. I want to thank my colleagues for taking a strong position in favor of reforming our broken immigration system. I would encourage other elected officials in the region to support reforms that protect our residents, support our businesses, and strengthen our families. We can do better, we must do better, and we will do better. We will do better for the citizens of San Diego and the future citizens of this great nation. And to that, I would offer an amendment to Mr. Alvarez's resolution. We have a resolution as well, as he mentioned, and I would offer an amendment that we forward both of these to the full council with no recommendation today, and that if it pleases the committee and the chair, that potentially we could form an ad hoc committee of Mr. Alvarez and me to try to reconcile these two resolutions and come up with one that meets the needs of both sides.
Well, I need the maker of the motion to either agree to the amendment first or not. Mr. Alvarez, I know there has been some effort, and note that I did let you all know that we will be glad to docket the other resolution in a future meeting, given that the way we found out about it was essentially through the media on Monday, and that is not timely for today. And I note that you did request from the council president for docketing of it as well. So we are in communication with the president's office to talk about the other reso, but
Right.
Mr. Alvarez?
I want to say, first of all, thanks to Councilmember Kersey. He understands the issue quite well, which is great, and some excellent points that have been made. First of all, I'll go back to the main purpose of the resolution, and what's missing from your points respectfully is this is a request for a pathway to citizenship. That's all it is. You either support that or you don't. That's what this resolution is about. I again saw your resolution right through the media, and there are some things in here that I don't agree with. I don't know if it's changed, but if you like to, I can point out specifically things that I don't agree with, and that includes your language that refers to reasonable and practical plan that allows unauthorized immigrants currently residing in the U.S. to earn legal status, not citizenship, contingent upon successfully securing the nation's borders. There are many of us who have worked along the border that feel that the nation's borders are quite secure. And instead of focusing on border security, what we're asking in the resolution is to acknowledge the importance of our border region and for more border infrastructure to expedite our border crossings, which you so articulated so well, and I'm not able to. But that's missing. Then also, in your resolution, you talk about young people entering the U.S. unknowingly, and they could only apply for legal status, again, not citizenship, through a separate process if they had military service or higher education. I just shared with you, Lucero is a perfect example of this. She might have higher education, but there's plenty of other shining stars out there that might not ever get a chance to do that. So for that reason, and for the reason that you all have already signed a memo with 4 signatures, that regardless of what we do here, the council president is required to docket that. I don't see a need for me to amend my motion to forward your resolution. You're already going to have your opportunity in front of the council to have that heard. And I like my opportunity of this resolution, which I stand firmly behind, to be heard as well. So I do not accept the amendment.
Yes.
If I could, I would just like to point out one error in Mr. Alvarez's analysis. Where we talk about minors, we say which could include higher education. We're not limiting to that. And our point is that we're not going to try to dictate. Congress is going to come up with what they come up with. We're not going to limit. We're just saying it could include higher education. And in fact, it says that right there.
Can I ask a question to the City Attorney, Ms. Leitner, in terms of just a point of clarification? Mr. Alvarez made a amendment.
Mr. Faulkner can go ahead and we'll swap time. You go ahead. And
just a point of order. Just a point of order. I'm happy to let Ms. Emerald go, but just on the question of my colleague made an amendment, motion amendment, which I seconded. We vote on that amendment?
We can certainly vote on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is defeated. The amendment is defeated. We return to Mr. Alvarez's original motion. Mr. Faulkner, did you want to continue?
Kevin, if you got a chain of thought or something you want to continue on, I'm happy to. But, okay, go ahead.
Councilmember.
I'll speak in a minute. I don't have a lot to say.
No, thank you. Let me talk about a couple of things that Mr. Kersey talked about. And yes, my colleagues, some of my colleagues and I did put forward a resolution that we were proud to stand behind and talked about bipartisan effort and bipartisan reform. And particularly what we were focused on, as many of our speakers here today talked about, is the action that is happening in Washington, particularly the so-called Gang of Eight. Bipartisan, Democrat, Republicans, who have put out principles that we took those principles and we said, we think we have a real opportunity for meaningful, comprehensive immigration reform that not everybody on the right will agree with and not everybody on the left will agree with, but we have a opportunity and momentum in Washington, D.C. right now that we believe, I think all of us believe, I know Mr. Alvarez, my colleagues believe, and my speakers believe today, that we should take advantage of. And so when we crafted that resolution, we took all of the items that were out of those recommendations so far from Washington to make sure that we focused on a bipartisan immigration reform principles and principles that currently, right now, are supported by Democrats and Republicans. And we didn't take that language off the cuff. We wanted to make sure that it dovetailed exactly what's being discussed because there has been a lot of great work being done. I think we're offering a balanced and fair solution and a reasonable and practical plan that talks about immigrants and legal status. But let me say very directly to my colleague, Mr. Alvarez, who I admire, respect, and support all of the work that he has done on that I support a pathway to citizenship. I want to be very clear about that. We took the language right out of the document that is happening in the Gang of Eight. And so I would say, Mr. Alvarez, I think we're talking about the same thing. And the spirit of Mr. Kersey's amendment was to say we have a resolution from Mr. Alvarez. We have another resolution, but yet our other resolution is not here today. I think it was timely. I believe that we can talk about it. I don't believe there's anything that precludes us from talking about that. So we wanted to get together and get to one resolution, but yet we're being told we can't consider that resolution. And I will just say, as somebody who strongly believes that it is in the city of San Diego's best interest that we come together and we have one resolution, because that's in all of our interests. And I believe, and I wanted to make sure I said this very clearly today, that I am open to adding to the resolution that we have put forward the specific language on pathway to citizenship. So there's no question about what we're talking about. And I think that that's something that I would consider my colleagues to do, rather than when we get to council, have one resolution and another resolution. That was the spirit of what Mr. Kersey just talked about today. And I think that's in the best interests of San Diego. But Mr. Alvarez mentioned one other thing, and I want to commend him for the work that he has done on this. And the issue that he mentioned that he had a concern with was the effort on enforcement strategies, border enforcement strategies, particularly our language and his language. I hope that we could come together on that language as well, and I mean that, because I don't think that border enforcement is short-sighted or a burden to reform. We still have many problems at the border: human trafficking, smuggling, a variety of things. And I think that border enforcement not only is important, particularly to reduce wait times, improve our economy, new technologies. That's what we're talking about when we talk about that. And in fact, that was one of the key elements that came out of the Gang of Eight. They talk about that. It's not just one side, Democrats or the others, talking about it. It's Republicans and Democrats talking about it. That's why it's in our resolution. and I think appropriately so. We continue to believe in comprehensive immigration reform, taking those principles directly out of what's being discussed in Washington on a bipartisan basis. I think we should and have an obligation as San Diegans to be a leader on immigration reform. And I think the things that we've talked about today in terms of pathway to citizenship, and I would absolutely support the language that we have when we talk about border security. I think that's essential. That's our measure to success. So, Mr. Kersey offered a very open, bipartisan spirit of amendment that said, let's forward them both. Let's work on some of these language differences, because I don't think in the end they're not. Particularly, I hope I've dispelled anything on pathway to citizenship, and I've been as direct and as clear as I can about that. But on some of the other items, I would say to my colleague, Mr. Alvarez, I think the issues that we've talked about on border security is important, and it's important because of all of the discussion that's happened and the fact that this is going to be key to a bipartisan agreement that Democrats and Republicans are talking about. I want us to have one resolution. If Mr. Alvarez's motion was to forward his with the hopes that we could come together and work together on one resolution, I will support that today. I want to commit that to you. But I can't support it, even though ours wasn't heard today, which I don't think is the right approach, but that's okay. But I can't support it just as is without us trying to work together on some common language. And I think that was the spirit of what Mr. Kersey articulated. I think that's fair. And I think it's best for us to come together on this because it's important. This is not about politics. It is about doing the right thing. Hopefully you've heard from some of my comments to my colleague, Mr. Alvarez, particularly on being very specific on the need to include pathway to citizenship, that you will find a council that can get to where we want to go today.
I note that the resolution that is in the backup for the meeting today does include a pathway to citizenship. I believe I made it very clear that that resolution would be available for discussion today. This is an opportunity for you all to make recommendations for changes to that. The prime resolution is the one that has been presented by Councilmember Alvarez, and if there are certain features you wish to see included from the document that you put out Monday afternoon, let's do that. But the one on the floor is actually the reso that was out on Friday for comment. And I note that with the 4 signatures on the memorandum to the council president, that will be docketed at council without any changes. It has to be. So, Ms. Emerald.
Thank you very much. I got to tell you, this is probably one of the most hopeful discussions I've heard on immigration reform since I've been in San Diego for the last 32 years. And I'll tell you why. Because it's not, there's no finger pointing here. What you're talking about, the bipartisan support for something that is so vitally important, not just to our region, but to defining who we are as Americans in this country. So often we hear from various politicians, to the right, pointing fingers at people who aren't documented, and all of our problems are their fault. And what I'm hearing from our council colleagues today, from you, Kevin, and Mark, is that you're embracing the people in this community who have been here working hard, who want to contribute, and who just don't happen to have the documentation that they ought to have, that they've earned in more ways than we could probably count. So this is really, I think, a great conversation and a great place to start in working together as a council and a community to resolve the bigger issues that are related to immigration reform. With that said, I don't think that civil rights and human rights should necessarily be predicated on bureaucracy and its ability or obvious inability to resolve the bigger problem related to immigration reform. And what do I talk? I'm talking about the way the border works and whether security is good enough, or the backlog of visas, which has been a huge problem for years and years and years. I think that that's all a piece of it, but it's not the issue we're discussing today. And what we're discussing today is saying as a council, as elected officials, that we are dedicated to making sure that the people who are here in this country, who work so hard, who otherwise are obeying all of our laws and helping us to be a more rich and productive community, have a pathway to citizenship. And we can do that and approve that. And then afterward, I honestly believe that there are issues that we need to weigh in on that have to do with the bureaucracy and the inefficiencies. And I would love to see something like that go forward, an ad hoc committee, because those are the particulars that we have to live with. This is what impacts all of us so much. And if we can be part of the solution to that, I think that not only is it a great opportunity, but I think we discussed this at PS and NS the other day with regard to the assault weapons ban. We have an obligation because we're on the front lines. We're feet on the ground, all of us. We're the eyes and ears, and people in Washington don't know what's going on. They don't know the practical impacts of these issues. We do. And I believe we do have an obligation to do exactly what you said, Mr. Kersey, which is to create an ad hoc committee separate from this resolution, because this is a simple message that we're sending, that it is our intent to support a legal pathway to citizenship for all those who want to work at that and become citizens of the United States. And beyond that, I think we also have an obligation to start picking away at at all of the bureaucratic stuff that gets in the way of that pathway, that blocks the pathway. And so I commend you for bringing forward these ideas and look forward to supporting that going forward, not as part of this particular resolution. Because again, all of this often has been used as a veil to keep us from doing the right thing on behalf of human rights and human dignity. And so I want to make sure we're real clear on our message today, that we support the civil and human rights of these individuals. So I support Mr. Alvarez's motion. That's why I seconded it. I want us to send it on with our recommendation, a full recommendation to our council. And then after the full council has voted on this and hopefully approved it, and I trust they will, I think that we ought to discuss creating this ad hoc committee to continue advising Congress and guiding the process so that when we have the kind of we'll have immigration reform that's really going to work. Not Simpson-Mazzoli that offered some amnesty and wound up exposing people to scams and where there was no follow-up. It was all politics. In 1986, the amnesties that helped your family and others, Mr. Alvarez. There was no follow-up. There was no fixing the bureaucratic problems and the process that has perpetrated these problems. So with that, thank you again for your courage and your passion behind this, and I'm honored to be able to support it and second it today.
Councilmember Alvarez.
Thank you. And I want to assure my council colleagues who presented a different resolution that there are some important points in the work prepared by the Gang of Eight. I just heard Councilmember Faulkner said he supports pathway to citizenship. That's all this resolution is. We purposefully left out all of the other intricacies of all of the discussions because we could get really, really detailed and make this really, really long, and probably the immigration bill is going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of pages. Or we can say together that at the epicenter of immigration reform, of this civil rights issue, is a pathway to citizenship. And then there are other issues that are tied to that. And I'm definitely willing to sit down with Mr. Kersey, Mr. Faulkner, to talk about what those things are in their resolutions that, again, it's going forward to full council already. And it's going to be discussed there. And we could work on that there and maybe before then, and we'll have a united front. But it's really simple. It's either you support pathway to citizenship, that's what this resolution says, it doesn't say anything else, or you don't support it. That's all it is.
Ms. Leitner? Can I
Yes.
just chime in real quick? I do support the citizenship component of this as well, as does my colleague, Mr. Faulkner, as he just said. And certainly we could, we'd be willing to clean up some of this language if that would help. I wonder if Mr. Alvarez would consider adding or amending his motion so that both of these resolutions are heard at council at the same time, and that this committee direct your office and my office to work together to try to harmonize these two before that council meeting occurs.
I thought we just did that. Am I mistaken?
We
We just voted down that amendment.
Yeah. Your resolution is going to council. I don't know when. I don't know when the council president is going to docket it. I don't know when he's going to docket ours. But
Well, I guess-
between then and between here and there, there's plenty of time to talk about this, and I'm more than willing. Our office reached out to both of your offices as of Monday when we learned about your release, your press release, and we can continue to talk. That's absolutely not a problem. But my motion just stands, and I'd ask a vote on that.
Okay. Well, if nobody wants to give us direction to do that, I guess we'll just agree to do it.
And
Okay.
I would say I'd hope that that's not the case, and I would say I welcome our continued dialogue and discussion on this, because ultimately we will have a bipartisan resolution. I am hopeful, and I continue to do that. So I will just reiterate certainly that while the chair did not want to consider ours today, Mr. Alvarez put his out on Friday afternoon. We put ours out on Monday morning. But that being the case, that is what it is. But I will just say there's optimism to move forward. I wish we could have forwarded both of them to have that discussion at the same time, because as I mentioned, it's not just about one particular item. It's about including all the items, because this is comprehensive and trying to get bipartisan support. We attempted to do that, didn't want to just focus on one item, but you can't just have some without all of them. But I'm hopeful that when it comes to council, we can do that. It's a shame that we can't do that today.
Thank you all for your comments. We do have a motion on the floor made by Mr. Alvarez, seconded by Ms. Emerald. You all could make it bipartisan right now. And we definitely know that the other one has to be docketed at council within 30 days, so I don't know what the status of this one will be. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. All opposed? Motion carries 3-2. Thank you all. We are adjourned until our next evening committee meeting on April 10th, 2013 at 6 p.m. We will be holding a public hearing and discussion regarding council committee restructuring. It will be in this room. Thank you very much for your time.
You're watching City TV 24, your access to City Hall.